All right. So welcome to Business 3960 for summer A term. I am your instructor for this course. My name is Megan Morrow. I am located in the Becker building. If you guys are on campus and wanted to come by and see me, I'm on the third floor right across from Dean Weber's suite. For those of you, if you're only strictly online for this summer, you can reach me via email or even on Handshake. If you wanted to make a virtual appointment with me, you can find me under business careers. I usually tell people to go under career business final steps or something like that, and then you'll find me. We're in a process of trying to streamline Handshake, so it's a little bit easier. But you can find me there if you wanted to make an appointment. Also, my number is for my office is 863 680 4600. So any of those ways you can get in touch with me if you need anything throughout the course, and obviously also through Canvas. Okay, I just want to tell you a little bit about me so you guys kind of know who I am and kind of where I'm coming from. I am not native to Florida, but I've been here since '02. I actually am from a really small town in southern Indiana where it was like one of those towns where there's one stoplight and the crossing guard is actually the judge and the milkman or something. It's a really, really small town. And from there I moved to Pittsburgh, was where I kind of call home and where I grew up. I'm a big Steeler fan. I also got to spend some time in New Zealand my senior year of high school. And then from there went to Atlanta where I did my undergraduate. My parents were not military. They just like to move around a lot. And so as a kid, I was kind of just dragged around with them. After my undergrad in Atlanta, that's when I moved to Florida. And again, that's in '02. And I kind of bounced around a little bit on both coasts. And I started working in community mental health. So I've been in those psychiatric hospitals. I've been all the way up to the not guilty by reason of insanity up in Tallahassee. I've worked in county jails, prison, federal prison, work release camps, juvenile prisons, anything along those lines. And then I started teaching. I started teaching in a couple of different environments to where it was like a one classroom schoolhouse, and it was like 6th through 12th grade in the one classroom, and these were all juvenile offenders. From there, I actually started working I went ahead and went into public school and started teaching high school for several years, did some independent work, and then came to Florida Southern actually last August. So I'm about to finish out my first year. I do belong to the Office of Career Services, but again, I am housed in Becker. So I do work closely with the School of Business students. So that would be all of you guys. So if you guys need anything outside of this class, I can continue to be a resource for you. I can help with your resumes, cover letters. We do interview skills. If you wanted to practice for an interview before you have one coming up, you find a job you want to apply for, we can make sure that we look at your resume and make sure it fits the job description. So I provide all of that stuff. Also, the headquarters for Career Services is actually over in Rogers, right across from the Snake Pit. And there you'll find a career clothes closet. So if you were going on an interview or you needed to dress professionally, but you did not have clothes, you can go shopping in the career clothes closet. You can make an appointment on Handshake to do that. Same with the professional headshot room. So that's a really cool feature that we have. You can get a professional headshot done. You reserve the room for the whole, you get 30 minutes, you get the whole room to yourself. No one is in there taking your picture. They actually set you up with a tripod and an iPad, and you have a little clicker, and you can take as many pictures as you want so that you get the right look that you're going for, and you can email them to yourself. That is completely free for you guys. To get professional headshots done is very, very expensive. And so this is just a service that we offer that's completely free to you guys. Also, if you needed a room for internet, if you were doing a virtual interview, if you had to Zoom with somebody and maybe your dorm or your apartment doesn't have really good Wi-Fi, you can absolutely reserve an interview room. And again, you can do that all through Handshake through the Career Service Center, and you can use that to if you wanted to meet with employers that way. Okay, so that is just a little bit about me. Again, just to kind of reiterate, if you did want to meet with me in person, when you make the appointment with me on Handshake, that you must make sure that you understand that I'm in Becker. I'm on the 3rd floor of Becker. I'm not over in Rogers in where the headquarters for career services is. I'm over here in Becker where you guys are taking your classes. You can also do a virtual interview as well. We can also just do a phone call, whatever's easiest for you. If you needed to meet with me, if you needed me to review some documents, especially if we were doing like a resume review or anything like that. So that is me. I also have 2 boys, 16 and 10, and I have 2 big dogs. So usually in person, we have a little bit more conversation, but those are, I swear, I could be a stand-up comedian with the material that these 4 give me on a regular basis. If you don't have kids or are not around small children often, you don't even realize what comes out of your mouth as a parent. Like, I really have to say these things. It's quite comical. But so that's my family. That's me. I think that's about it. So if you have any questions, I'm gonna put a book. Feel free to ask. But we're going to go ahead and jump right into the syllabus. So it is listed for you on Canvas. So if you kind of wanted to follow along, I'm definitely not going to read this to you. You guys are, adults, so I'm not going to read this to you. I just want to highlight a couple things. At the very top of the syllabus, again, tells you where to find me. I can't reiterate that enough, that I am in Becker. I am not over in Rogers. And you can probably guess why I have to keep saying that, because it's nonstop that people go to Rogers when they should be coming over to Becker, because that is where my office is. Let's see. Okay. So in an online format, you do not have to come to these Zoom sessions. I like seeing the people that are in here. That's awesome. If you can come, fantastic. If you can't, no worries. I will record these and I will post these. Feel free to come off mute, ask questions. We can make it as interactive as you'd like. If not, then again, I'm just going to kind of go through the material. You can email me questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand or come off mute, anything along those lines. But I will post all this and everything that we talk about in announcements, kind of like in a bulleted outline of what we covered. So if you are unable to come to one of these, then you will be able to watch the recording. This is only 6 weeks, so I will be available Monday through Friday. I don't have a set time where I grade or I don't grade, or I'm not going to be available on the weekends. That is my time with my family. If you were having some kind of major emergency or something like that, I will try to see how I can make sure that you guys can get in contact with me. But for the most part with this class, the stuff that you're going to be doing is going to be for your benefit. So it's not like there's going to be a big paper, there's no test or anything like that. There's nothing that you should, not be able to get to me. And even though I put the deadlines in there, that's to keep us on track, but I don't take off late points. You have up until the end of the course to make sure that you submit everything. But with that said, please don't think that, oh, I'll get to it. This is a truncated course. So there are a lot of assignments that I'm assigning every week. And if you wait to the end, then you kind of run that risk that you are going to run out of time. And once the course closes, it closes. And I'm very strict about that for the fact that I give you the entire term to turn stuff in without taking off any late points. So I will not accept anything after the close, which is going to be Friday, June 23rd at 11:59 p.m. So that is 6 weeks. So please stay on top of that. Again, I will post things as they are due. So this class, this is my first time teaching it like this online. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to get through everything like we did in the face-to-face classes. If you were to take this class throughout the actual semester, spring or fall, I do bring in a lot of guest speakers. We have a lot of employers that like to come and speak with you, and then they will table. So since we're doing this over the summer, we don't necessarily have that capability, but keep an eye out on either Handshake, or make sure that you're following the Instagram page on our social media for the career services, because next fall and spring and so on, we will still have those people coming and speaking and tabling, and you are welcome to attend, especially if it's one of my classes, you're welcome to attend, or you can just make sure that if that's a particular group, you want to speak to, and know that they're going to be tabling in the Becker building and you can go speak with them. So we try to advertise that as much as possible. Please make sure that you are checking your email. That is our #1 way to communicate, especially for an online class. If you have a preferred email that you would like for me to communicate with you, make sure you give me that email. You can shoot me an email to mine, which is mmorrow, sorry, mmorrow, so mmorrow@flsouthern.edu. If you're having any trouble, please make sure that you reach out to the IT people, Rinker, or anything like that. If you're having any kind of technical difficulties, I am pretty tech savvy, but not when it comes to anything along those lines. So I will not necessarily be your best resource for any kind of tech issues. So make sure that you are taking care of that on your end. I will do my best if I can. All right, so honor code, you guys know all this. I don't think that's anything that's new for you. We've got some assignments that are listed. I'm not going to go through each one. You can see them listed on the syllabus as well as in the modules, so you can go through those. I am going to unlock the material and the assignments every week as we go through. Basic grading guidelines, ABCDF. This is really completion. So there really is no reason why you shouldn't be getting an A. The only way that you wouldn't is if you are just not doing the work. If you have any questions, guys, I'm very approachable. I'm very accessible. So please don't hesitate if you want to go over something or something doesn't make sense or you don't understand, something, but I will do my best to try to explain it. But again, I have no problem going through anything more than once. I'm happy to explain things. Okay, so the course schedule is pretty set, but I do like to operate on an attitude of flexibility because things do come up, who knows what, they may or may not affect us. I know, like, if you guys were here for the fall of 2022, we had the hurricanes and we have, closures and we have all this kind of stuff. So we just kind of have to be flexible. And I'm very understanding too, as long as you communicate with me, if something's happening, you're having trouble with your computer, you're having trouble with Wi-Fi, a family emergency, anything along those lines, but you have to communicate with me so that I know what is going on. We do not have a course text or anything like that, but I do have lots of videos that I feel really do help supplement. So I will post those for you every week if that's something that I think that you should watch. Again, that's just for extra resources. And also, if you see on Canvas, you'll see where there's an extra resource tab. So I try to put as much up there as I possibly can, just so that you guys have it, so you guys can go through that stuff. And the same with announcements. I will send announcements regularly. I get a lot of good information. Summer's definitely a little bit slower than the normal school year, so I might not have as many job opportunities or internship opportunities popping up over the summer. But anything that does come across my desk, I do make sure that I push it out to you first, and then I share it with the career services that they put on Instagram and do targeted emails, then get on Handshake and all that stuff. So far, I hope we're doing good. I'm not seeing any hand raisings or anything in the chat, so I think so far we're good. Okay, we will do these live lessons Tuesdays at 2. Again, they will be recorded. I do want to bring your attention to the 30th, which is 2 weeks from today. I am actually going to be out. That is Memorial Day weekend. I'm taking some time off with my kids. We are doing a fun staycation for a week. So what I'm going to do is I will post this as a pre-recorded lesson for week 3. I will post it and I will have it already up before the 2 o'clock on Tuesday, but it will not be a live class and it will not be interactive, just for the simple fact that I'm going to be off. But then the rest of the class should be no problem. Okay, I think that's it. I do want to draw your attention to the fact that you do have to have an internship. This should hopefully not be news to anybody, but it is anybody that has a major in the School of Business does have to have an internship. And the person that you want to coordinate with would be Takara Graham. And I will post her information in the announcements as well about where to meet with her. She is our internship kind of coordinator, if you will. She, when you do have an internship, you do take a Canvas course that she runs, and that's kind of where her role is. So if you are going to have an internship, it has to be approved through her first. This was something that was kind of new to some students. So I'm going to reiterate that again. You have to have your internship approved first before you can start your internship. So they will not go back and do retroactive credit. And some students found themselves in that boat, that they were like, oh, I didn't know that. I already took the internship. I already completed it, but they never got it approved, never did the Canvas course. They had to go back and do another internship. So please make sure that you don't put yourself in that situation. If you want more than one internship, that's awesome. You know, that you can have multiple. And it's actually encouraged that you start early and often and try to get as much experience on your resume, that's professional experience, as you can. Sometimes if you're a younger student, like in your first year or two, you might find yourself having to take some unpaid internships, because the higher, like the paid ones, they're looking for, you know, rising seniors or, you know, people who are about ready to graduate, because the idea is to convert an internship into a full-time paid position after you complete school, especially if you're a good fit. It's good for you and it's good for the employer. Kind of try it before you buy it. But just know that you are required. It is part of your graduation requirement, is to take an internship. Now, most students will do it like the fall or summer or spring, and then they'll do the Canvas course concurrently. Some, especially if you're a student athlete or you have a really full schedule and you can't fit it in, some will do it in the summer and then they can defer the credits until the next fall. They will allow you to defer from summer to fall. That's the only time you can defer. You cannot go back, but you can put it ahead. So if you were not going to take any summer classes and you didn't want to have to pay the summer tuition and you were just doing the internship because that's the only time you could, defer the credit, and then you would do it in the fall. But just make sure you have room in your schedule for whether it's a 2 or 4 hour internship, and your advisor would know what kind you would need. So if you're unsure, please make sure that you reach out to your advisor, because I don't know. It's different per major. And then Takara Graham as, again, who you want to talk to. So you'll notice one of your assignments is an internship acknowledgement form. That is simply just for you to sign and submit, saying, yes, I fully understand that I have to get an internship, and that I understand that I have to get it approved, and I have to get the paperwork in before I get started. And the last thing I'm going to say about internships too is that we do not place you in an internship. So that is something that we want to be very, very clear. We offer the resources. We have tons of employers who are looking for, especially Florida Southern students, depending on your skill set, depending on where you are in your academic career, location, interest, all that stuff. We do have things that we could present as far as saying like, hey, look, this is available. That's as far as I can go though. You have to actually do the one, you know, to apply for it. You have to interview for it. You have to get it. And a lot of times we might not have anything that is in your major. Your internship does have to align with your major. So if it doesn't align with that, and there's nothing that I have in my pipeline, you will have to go out and secure one for yourself. We are absolutely more than happy to help, but just please understand that we do not just have them. It is not part of the course. It's not part of the curriculum that we just like, okay, here's your internship, now go. You have to go get it yourself. And if you need help, you're struggling, please reach out to me or to Cara, and we'd be more than happy to help. Okay, let's move right on. Okay, so this class is all about professional development, all about growing your skill set to be competitive, to get out there and secure the best internships, to be offered the best jobs that you are wanting, whether that's high paying, whether that's something overseas, whether that's something, you know, with your dream company. It doesn't matter. Like, everything that we talk about, you're going to be able to use throughout the rest of your professional journey. Everybody's going to need to have a resume. Everybody's going to need to know how to write a cover letter. Everybody needs to know how to interview. Now, there are some people who have just, you know, whether it's been circumstance or whether it's been just right place, right time. And I've heard a couple of people say this, that they've never interviewed for a job ever. That's pretty awesome. You know, maybe it was just, you know, they networked and it was offered, they didn't have to like go out there and compete. But for the majority, you're going to have to apply. You're going to have to go against other candidates. You're going to have to beat the AI system first just to even get in front of human eyes before a recruiter or hiring manager will even look at your resume. You have to wow them on that resume. That is you on paper that says, here are all of my skills. Here are all the wonderful things that I do. And then they have to give you an opportunity. So you have to get your foot in the door to get the interview first. And that's going to start with your resume and even with your cover letter. So those are the things that we are really going to focus on here in this class, is how to write a really stellar, strong resume, how to write a cover letter, how to look for a job, how to pull out keywords from the job description and make sure that they are on your resume and cover letter. If you are submitting something, say through Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever resource you're using, I think Monsters may be a little outdated, ZipRecruiter, something like that. You submit it electronically, and if there's certain keywords that are not there, it's not even going to get to a hiring manager. And so sometimes people say, like, I've put my resume out like 20 times. I've applied to like 100 jobs. I'm not getting any callbacks. Well, is your resume generic? Is it tailored to that specific job? Do you have the right keywords? Do you have the right skill set? So those are things that we're going to look at, and I'm going to teach you how to do that so that when you do want to apply for a job, you have the best opportunity to get in front of the hiring manager first through your resume and cover letter. So what are some things that employers are looking for? So the first thing that we're going to pull up here is got an employability assessment. And I'm going to share my screen with you real fast. Over here. Employability self-assessment. This is listed for you in Canvas. So this is this is not anything that you are turning in as an assignment, but look through that. These are the top 10 employability skills that employers are saying that they're looking for. Now, this could change a little bit here and there, depending on the company, the industry, but these are basically going to be your top 10. Your ability to work in a team, your problem-solving skills, your analytical and quantitative skills, your verbal and written communication, leadership, initiative, technical skills, especially with the way that the world is evolving now. We need to be computer savvy. Now, if it's not relevant to the job that you're going to do, you might not need like Six Sigma or whatever that is, or SPSS, or you might not need anything above just basic computer literacy, internet, Microsoft Office. It all just depends on what position you were actually going through. If you're in accounting and you've got to, crunch a lot of numbers, you're going to have some more technical skills. Flexibility, adaptability, and then, of course, strong work ethic. So that is for you. A lot of the stuff that we do here is for your self-reflection so that you can fully understand yourself, where your strengths are, maybe where you need to improve. So you have to really be honest with yourself. So as you look over this employability self-assessment, literally ask yourself for like, how comfortable do you feel? So when I do this in my face-to-face classes, I ask you to look at each one and list 1 through 10, your comfort level. 1 being the least confident and 10 being the most confident that you possess these skills. So what I would like for you guys to do is fill that out, look at that, kind of keep that close so that you can see, hey, this is what I'm really good at. This is what I need to work on. And especially if you're going after an employer who really wants a skill that you say like, I'm not that confident, then you know that you could start working on that. I highly recommend Udemy. You can do some free courses on Udemy, or they're at least very, very affordable. And I know that we are working as a university to push out some Canvas courses that will allow you to get certifications like social media or project management or Excel. And when you get like an actual certification, when you put that on your resume, that stands out versus just saying, yeah, I'm proficient, or yeah, I understand how to do it. So take a moment and look over that, and that will be something that you are just self-reflecting on. Where do you find your confidence level? What can you do to increase that? What will you do moving forward if that is a skill that your employer is looking for? Okay. So next we're going to talk about your employability in as far as the skills in subsections. So if you will look on Canvas, you will see a checklist. Let me see if I have it here too. All right, let me show you this one. Here it is. So this is what we're going to be. So if you're in the class with me right now, or if you were watching this on Zoom, go ahead and download this so that you can follow along with us. Right now, just kind of keep this to the side. We're going to do a quick presentation on the 9 skills that are listed here. And like I said earlier, like some of them may be a little transferable, like this is the top 10 according to these employers that were interviewed. Here's some top 9 that Career Services here at Florida Southern said that this was really important. So again, it's a little bit on the fluid side, but as keep this because we're going to do the activities along the way that go along with these. But right now, just kind of put that off to the side, and then we are going to pull this up. Okay. All right. So hopefully you are seeing the PowerPoint. There we go. All right, so maximizing your competitive edge. So these are 9 employability skills prepared by the Office of Career Services. They did decide to chunk it into 3 categories. So you're going to see under cooperation, we have leadership, multicultural respect, and teamwork. Under innovation, communication, problem solving, maximizing technology. And under exploration, knowledge of self, professional branding, and thinking ahead. So since employers are actually looking for the skills, it is important that you make sure that you understand each one and how to perform them. These are top skills. Unless you are going into a field where maybe you're just going to be behind a computer, you're just doing data entry, you're not going to be interacting much, you're going to pretty much need these kind of skills in any job that you guys go for, whether it's accounting or sports business or finance or economics. You're going to need these skills. And this way you can be a little bit more intentional in utilizing these skills to further develop yourself as you go. All right. So let's take a look. We're going to go into the category of exploration. So this is your knowledge of self, your professional brand, and thinking ahead. All right, knowledge of self. The better you understand yourself, the better you will know what you bring to the table. And it's important to know your own strengths as well as your own weaknesses. As you'll see when we talk about in teamwork, not everybody can be the leader. That's maybe not where your strong skill set is. Maybe you're really good at listening, at communicating. Maybe you're really good at organizing and, creating agendas and putting the meeting together, making sure everything stays on time. Everybody has a good skill set. You have to know what yours is. Where do you really, really shine? So the analogy with the milk here is that we all know what milk is. We all have, come in contact with it at some point in our lives. We know that it's used for different things. It's a beverage that can be drank by itself. You can put it in some other type, but like if you're making cookies or brownies or in your cereal. I know I put it in when I make eggs or when I make my kids chicken nuggets at home and I dip them and all this kind of stuff. But there's other things too that you have to think about, like milk has a shelf life. It has to be kept at a certain temperature. It definitely can go bad. Not everybody can ingest milk, which, by the way, if you don't know this, which is kind of a cool fact, that actually being able to ingest milk is a genetic mutation. People who are lactose intolerant, that's actually the way we were kind of engineered at first. But over the many years and evolution and all this kind of stuff, we've developed the ability to ingest cow's milk. So if you're lactose intolerant, then you just do not have the mutation. If you do, then you're just a mutant. That's cool because I am too. So the more you know about yourself, the deeper you can dive into your own self-reflections. All right, so everybody knows what professional brand is. That's pretty common. But what we don't necessarily know all the time are the small actions that can have an impact on your professional brand. For example, what is an attribute that you want to be affiliated with? Like when you think about words, what are, if somebody were to describe you, what words would you want to hear someone say about you? And so these words could be like, for me, mine's integrity. That's super, super important. I also want to be known as, I work hard. I am a team player. I feel like I'm very organized. I feel like I'm fair. These are things that are really important to me. So what are some, words that are really important to you that is going to help define who you are? And these are things that also can go into your professional summary if you choose to do that on your resume. These are things that can go into your cover letter. These are things that can just be your personal statement. So what are they? And what are you doing to emulate that? What are you doing so that people look at you and say, there's a person of integrity. Oh, that's a person who can handle a lot of stress. Oh, that's a person who always gets the job done. They're never late. What is it that's important to you? And then what are you doing that, would display those characteristics? That's part of your professional, your brand. So if you have these words in mind that you've thought about, and are you doing the things that you need to do to have people look at you in that way? If not, what can you do to change that? If yes, awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. But you don't want to be in this state of cognitive dissonance where you're like, yes, and being punctual and dependable is super important to me, but yet you never make it to class on time and you don't turn your assignments in on time. So what are you going to do to fix that? Again, it's just being aware. A lot of times we don't even know that this is something that we struggle with. You're not always going to be presented with clear opportunities to demonstrate these skills or these gifts or these strengths. So you have to do it in the small ways, which is just like walking the walk, like talking the talk and just being that person at all times. All right. And then the last one for this category is the thinking ahead. So long and short-term career goals. And this is actually important too, because interviewers, hiring managers, employers will ask you sometimes, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And if you do not have an idea of where you're going, what are you going to say in that interview? You're going to be like, I don't know, right here, like doing this job. And that sounds great to say that, but then, okay, so in 5 years from now, you're willing to take the same pay and the same job that you took when you had no experience, but now you have 5 years of experience. No one's going to do that, right? So you have to have goals. You have to know where you're going. No, you don't have to have it all laid out 100%. I mean, the path is always, windy and broken, and there's setbacks and there's, unexpected wins and so you never really actually know, but what is your end goal? What is your dream goal? What are you going to do to get yourself there? Do you have short-term and long-term goals? What are you going to do? So a lot of times when we take this class too, I want you guys to think you're graduating wherever you are right now, whether you are a first year or second or third, anything like that. But when we start to think about these activities that we're going to do, when we start thinking about building our resume, let's think about like what we're going for at the end of the journey. If you're looking to apply for internships, of course, we'll look at that and make sure that we're highlighting your skill set that you currently have, and then you're going to grow that. And your resume is going to always be this evolving document. But if you're looking at jobs, full-time career, not just jobs like that, you're just going to go out and get, minimum wage job, but career stuff. This is you have to look ahead, be like, okay, by the time I graduate, I will have, these skills. I will have taken these classes. I will have had these experiences. So sometimes just make sure that you're thinking ahead. What are your short-term and what are your long-term goals? There are so many times like an opportunity can fall into your lap and it could change the entire course of your actions. So for me, when I went to school, I knew I was going to be a journalist. I was a writer. I've been published several times. I love to write. I'm really good with the word. I've got the gift of gab, if you will. And so I went to college and I, declared my major as a journalist, and I took my first journalism class and I absolutely hated it. It was not creative writing at all. It was like, just the facts, and it was not anything I was interested in. So then I was like, now what am I going to do? So I quickly changed my major to English, which was awful. I didn't like that at all. And then I had to take some electives, and I took a psychology course, intro to psychology, as my elective. Fell in love, had no idea. I loved that stuff so much that I ended up declaring my major in psychology. I went on to work in psychiatric facilities and community mental health. I went on to get my master's in industrial, organizational, and leadership psychology. I went on to teach AP psychology for several years at the high school level. So that was not in my plan. I had no intention of being a teacher. I had no intention of anything with human behavior, nothing like that. But because of this happen chance that I just took this random elective, it literally mapped out the course and I changed gears completely. So sometimes stuff like that happens. Like you'll take an internship, you're like, I love this, or I hate it. So to know what you want is just as important as to know what you don't want. Okay. All right. So when you pull up the activity form, I'm not going to do this in the Zoom. I'm going to ask you guys to do this on your own afterwards. If you're watching this, just go ahead and pause it and you could do it yourself right there. But what you're going to do is look at the personal assessment of the traits that fall under the first 3 employability skills. I want you to check the traits that you are confident in and circle the traits that you want to develop and leave blank the ones that you are not confident in or that you just have no desire to develop at all. So you're going to do that for these ones that we just went over: knowledge of self, professional brand, and the thinking ahead. So then ask yourself, which employability skills received the most checks, circles, and blanks, and look to see if you can find some pattern. This, again, is for self-reflection. So you can look at that and say, wow, I'm really good over here, not so good over here. This is what I really need to work on. This is, again, not anything you're turning in, but something that you can have as just a resource, as a tool to look back on and say, this is where I'm good, this is where I'm going, this is where I need to go. All right, so for the next group is the innovation group, where we are going to talk about communication, problem solving, and maximizing technology. So communication is key. You have to be able to clearly communicate succinctly, clearly, whether it's written, whether it's verbal, whether it's an email, or even like a texting system, or you're presenting to a class or to your supervisor or to the entire organization or just your team. You have to be able to communicate clearly. And be really careful with written communication, because I'm sure we've all been victim of something that was misunderstood. You cannot discern tone over text. And I know what's happened to me where I've sent a text and I thought it was funny. I'm over here laughing, because I'm doing my sarcastic, I think I'm really funny. And then I've offended the other person because they couldn't see my face, or they don't really know me that well, or they were having a bad day and it just hit the wrong nerve. I'm sure this happened to you guys, and you're just like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. So be very careful about your communication. When you're communicating with professionals, unless you know that person really well, or unless it is appropriate, just be really sparing with humor or with sarcasm or anything like that that could be taken in a way that it was not the way you intended. Because you can easily say something that was innocent and it's taken the wrong way. And then now you have a really tough time either redeeming yourself or working with that person again, because they can't like not see or hear or read what they thought you had said. Make sure that if you have a lot to say and you're going to email somebody, remember this. Think about every time you open up your email. If you have like 20 emails, and one is like 10 pages long, you're probably not going to look at that email, not anytime soon. You're like, oh, I don't have time for that. That hurts my brain. I will look at that later. Then you might get pushed to the bottom of the pile and get forgotten about if that was your email. So emails need to be clearly and professionally addressed. So when you email me or any of your other professors or advisors or potential employers, you need to be professional. Dear Miss Morrow, dear Mr. Smith, good evening, Professor Josie, anything along those lines. If the communication's, pinging back and forth and it gets a little bit more informal, you just need to know your audience and follow along with that. But if every time you begin your email with good morning, good afternoon, or hello, or dear, or anything like that, you need to address the person that you are emailing. So don't send me an email the very first time that we communicate and you're just like, yo, homie, what's this assignment? Like, that's not professional. Now, I have a pretty good, strong sense of humor. Like I said, I worked in prison and I have 2 boys. So I have a pretty strong sense of humor, but on the professional side, that's not professional at all. Also sign it, thank you, and your name. And I would highly recommend that you just have an email signature that, so as soon as you hit reply or you start a new email, it's already going to be there. You don't have to worry about signing it all the time. You'll see in my emails where it has my name, my contact information, my title, all that kind of stuff, where I'm with. So there's no confusion about who I am when I'm sending emails. And I also have it set to when I reply as well. That's a personal preference. I think it's professional, but at least when you start a new email, make sure that you are signing it so they know who it's coming from. And then your verbal communication. If you're someone who gets nervous and you kind of stutter and you get a little like, like maybe your mouth is moving faster than your brain, that's what happens with my 10-year-old. He just gets like so excited. And so he ends up like stuck on words. And I have to tell him, stop, take a breath, think about what you're trying to say, and now speak. And it's the same with you in job interviews and presentations and networking events. If you find yourself getting nervous, just look, just take a. I just bought myself a couple seconds to center and say, okay, I'm good, moving on. That's a great thing to do if you're doing a Zoom interview. Always have some water next to you so that you can pause and do that. Or in a in-person interview, they should always offer you, you would think, hopefully, they would offer you a glass of water or something like that. But if you find yourself getting nervous and you're stuttering or you're not really getting the point across, just take a minute, take a breath, regroup. So communication is very, very, very important. Problem solving. So this skill tends to get overlooked because people only think about big problems that require big solutions. You don't take into account the everyday stuff. We're making decisions every single day. How do we get there? How do we make those decisions? How do we, look at things and prioritize? You're going to find yourself maybe in a position where you've got one supervisor telling you to do something and then somebody else, maybe from another department, or maybe it's lateral or it's your boss's boss. They're telling you to do something different. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to solve that problem? So understanding how you like to solve your day-to-day problems is going to really help you understand how you're going to solve like the bigger problems. I like to think things through. Are you someone who just knee-jerk, this is what we're going to do, and go with it? Sometimes that's necessary, like in an emergency or you're running out of time, you've got to make a decision. I'll use my son as an example. And again, sometimes he ho-hums. He likes to really think things through. He wants to really weigh his options. But I'm like, dude, you want pancakes or do you want French toast? Like at some point we got to make a decision. So I'll go 3, 2, 1, and then that's just what I do as a parent. But sometimes you have to go, oh, okay, and then make this decision. But if it's a big decision, like if you have 2 different companies that have offered you jobs and you want both of them, how are you going to make that decision? If you have to decide between salary or benefits, so there's a lot of, how are you going to do that? You're going to think it through. You're going to knee-jerk reaction it. So how do you solve your problems? And then maximizing technology. Always be on the lookout to expand your base of tech knowledge. If it's not pertinent, once again, if it's not pertinent, like with my role, I'm not crunching numbers. I'm not putting in complicated formulas. I'm not solving string theory or anything like that. But I do need to be able to navigate my email, the internet, different databases, obviously know how to use Zoom and Canvas. And all. So it's a kind of like basic tech knowledge, but your job might require more. So you need to know that. And where do you fall along that? So same thing, if you look at that next category, you're going to do the same thing as we did the first one. Again, if you're watching this recorded, just pause it. But what you want to do is you want to put a check next to the trait that you are confident in. You want to circle the trait that you want to develop, and you want to leave blank the trait that either you are not confident in and or you just have no desire to develop at all. Look for trends. All right, the last one is the cooperation module. You've got leadership, multicultural respect, and teamwork. Let's go right into leadership. So if we look at leadership here, let's look at the picture here. In your mind, which one kind of stands out, 1 through 6? If you were asking yourself, well, which one do you think is the leader and which one is not? You know, what shows you, what makes you feel that way? So it's not, leadership is not often constrained to a role, but maybe the situation. So in this particular situation, we may look at this and say, okay, I think 3. If I look at this, I think 3 is the one that really kind of sticks out. I think 6 looks like he's yawning, like he's kind of, he's kind of moving away from the group. He's doesn't look super engaged, but 3, he's laughing, he's joking, he's kind of in the center, he's also in the front. So that kind of immediately jumps out to me. But what if we said that this particular situation right here, that 3 could be the leader in this moment, but in 10 seconds from now, they're walking towards, the road or something like that, and they need someone to coordinate their Uber ride, maybe it's number 6, because he wasn't listening and joking and laughing and being distracted with the group. He was already thinking, okay, I've got to order the Uber. We got to get here. Here's the mileage. So he could actually be the leader that steps up. So think of it that way. Leadership is not just a role. It is not just a defined set of skills. It is not just something that one person does at all times. It could be very fluid depending on the circumstance and depending on the dynamics of the group. All right, multicultural respect. Huge. Diversity is huge. You will hear this all over, diversity and inclusion. The university has it, jobs have it. You'll see when you go to apply for jobs, you're looking at job descriptions. I can almost guarantee it at every one. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it'll say, ABC company is an equal opportunity employer. They will ask survey questions to find out about your ethnicity, your socioeconomic status. You do not have to disclose that, of course, but they're looking to see who's applying for these jobs. Are we reaching all of the population? I do a great adversity presentation, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. I usually have a speaker come in, and I love having the speaker because she is actually French, but she was raised in Scotland and she lives in America. So she's got like 30 different cultures, and so her accent's pretty funny. And she's the manager, HR manager. And so she's responsible for making sure that, diversity and multicultural respect is throughout her workplace. And also her as someone who has 3 different kind of cultures that sometimes might be conflicting. It's just really great. So unfortunately, she's not going to be presenting during the summer session. So I will do my best to emulate it, but I will not do it with accents because every time I try to do any kind of accent, regardless of what it is, it always comes out Japanese. And it's terrible. It's like, I shouldn't do it because it's bad. Like that doesn't even sound Scottish. And I'm over here like sounding, it's terrible. I digress. All right. So we look at the mosaic versus the melting pot. The negative side of the melting pot, you're taking away the edges. You're taking away the diversity that each ethnic or race or gender or socioeconomic status or sexual orientation, what they bring to the table. So it's not that we want to be separate, but we want to respect each other by learning about it, by being involved in it. And I'm sure you've heard people say, like, oh, I don't mind as long as I don't see it, that doesn't, whatever that could possibly be. And that you're just tolerating that person's diversity. You need to accept it. And this needs to be an organization-wide thing. So how do you rate on multicultural respect? How do you feel that you are open to people of diverse backgrounds? Are you willing to learn and willing to, accommodate some of the things that you might do so that you're respecting other people's culture and they're respecting your culture? So where do you find yourself along this multicultural respect? All right, teamwork. We've all been a part of a team, and I'm sure some of you are over there rolling your eyes and hating. I hate group lessons. I hate group projects. I get you. I understand. There's always a reason why. There's good sides and there's bad sides, but you will have to work in a team at some point in time in your career. And it might not be like, like what you're thinking of, like a group project. Maybe if you guys did the Shark Tank experience, or if you've taken Professor Tracy's, where you have to do the startup from start to finish, where everybody's working together, but it'll be some type of collaboration with others working towards a shared goal. So if you think about, like, just kind of brainstorm, what are some benefits and what are some obstacles? We can kind of, like, again, if this was live, we could spend a little bit more time on it, but some of the benefits that we have with working in a team: you have increased perspective, support and accountability, more resources available. You're seeing things from different points of view. You have different perspectives. There's so many times where, like, I didn't think about that. Oh, wow, that's a really great way. Or, oh, I was only seeing it this way versus this way. Some obstacles, though: non-ideal team members. Again, we've all been there. I know I have, where you've got one person who just doesn't do anything. They never come, they don't contribute. You've given them this part of the task, and you're like, oh God, they're not going to do it. I just want to do it myself, because that's me. I tend to be a little overbearing because I'm very protective of my work. And I feel like it is a reflection of me. So if I'm turning in something that's subpar, I feel like that reflects on me. And so I'm like, forget it. I'll just do it. I'll just do it. And that's not being a good delegator. That's definitely not being a good leader. So that's something I have to work on. That instead of saying, like, okay, well, I'm gonna help this person, but in a leadership role, you understand that there's people on your team who excel in different parts. So you're not going to ask everybody to do, a little bit of everything. Susie's really good at organization. Johnny's really good at writing. Joe is really good at research, and then you find out what everybody's strengths are, and then you delegate accordingly. And then you guys can all come together and everyone's doing something they enjoy. Distractions and increased chances of mistakes, because the more people that are mixing around with your stuff, the more opportunity there are to screw things up. All right, so do the same thing with this activity. You are going to check the traits under this group of skills that you're confident in. Circle the traits that you want to develop, and then leave blank the traits that you are not confident nor do you want to develop. All right, so this is all about maximizing your competitive advantage. So this is your journey, and it is going to be always evolving and moving and fluid, and things are going to become important that maybe weren't before. Maybe things that were important are no longer. So once you have a strong understanding of where you're coming from, then you know where you need to go. So, you're in college, you've made that great accomplishment of getting accepted into the college. You've graduated high school, you're in college, whether you're in your master's, whether in your bachelor's, or whether you're going to go off to, more professional school after this. This is all part of your journey. You don't need to be amazing at every single skill. You need to be amazing at a few that you're really like, this is what I do. And the rest can be in developing. Like, I'm not really good with numbers. Technology is not necessarily my strongest suit. Teamwork, I tend to be a little bit of a loner. I really like to do things on my own. And so that's just not something I'm really strong at. So I have to work on that. But I'm really good at organization. I'm really good at problem solving, and I'm really good at leadership. I also feel like I'm pretty good at communicating. You could tell me if that's wrong or not, but that's kind of where I feel like my skill set is. All right. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me via Canvas, or you can email them to me. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen real fast to see if there's anything in the chat box. I am not seeing anything, nobody's hands are up, so it looks like we're doing pretty good. All right, so yeah, if anything pops up, gotta go. I actually physically close it. Okay, cool. All right, so if you have any questions about any of that stuff, please let me know. I will post again all of these things in the Canvas. All right, Alexander, please go ahead.
Just one thing. I was looking at the homework, and some of them were not open. Like for this week, it said it was in like a unpublished module, like the half a part of your story. Is that can be opened or?
Yeah, we're gonna go every week. I'm gonna open them at the beginning of each week, or maybe I'll
Well,
do
I
it at the
think
end. Yeah, at the
because
end. Sorry.
I think because they show up on like my to-do list, but like we don't have like access to, like what the material says or anything like that.
Yeah, if it's not due this week, and we can talk about that if you guys would rather it just all be open and you guys can work at your own pace, we can see if
That'd
that
be pretty
makes more
good.
sense. If it's because I was kind of like, we'll just do it week by week and I'll open it at the end of each week before we start the next week. So we'll kind of play it by ear and see, but if that's more the general consensus, I have no problem going through and just like opening everything up.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So again, those are the the checklist and the this employability self-assessment. Just do those, answer them as truthfully and honestly as you can, but it is not something that you are going to have to turn in or anything like that. I don't believe I made an assignment. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I didn't, because I just wanted it to be like a reflection that you guys are looking at and knowing that it's always going to be evolving as you go through your journey. All right, so the last two things that we're going to go over for this portion of the week is the top interview questions. So that is something that you are going to be asked, obviously. If you've had a job interview before, you're well aware, they ask you questions. If it's been like a job, like just a job, like my oldest son, he's 16, he's out there applying for jobs. He has literally 15-minute interviews. Like he's playing at the different restaurants and stuff. He walks in, they ask him a couple questions, and then they're like, all right, cool, we'll let you know. And that is, well, sorry, my motion light went off and I got it. Sorry, it's a little warm in here. But in an actual professional interview, they're going to ask you questions that are going to require you to not necessarily have scripted answers for, but to be prepared for. So what we're going to do in this class is we're going to go over 1 to 2 every class period. And what I would really like you guys to do is I'm going to go over kind of like what the question is, how you're going to put your answer together. And the best way to practice this, honestly, is to fill out your answer the way that you would if we were doing this in class, and then practice. Every time you say something out loud, you get better at it. And if you're going in without any preparation to an interview, you're going to be stumbling. So the purpose is to familiarize yourself with the questions that these employers are going to ask you, and then be able to tailor these questions specifically to that job. So you're going to have an assignment where you have to find a job description. I'm going to talk about that in just a quick second. So knowing what job you're interviewing for really does help you answer these questions. But the first two that I picked can pretty much be the same, and except for the tell me about yourself, you're going to have to tailor that just a little bit. So let me pull that up for you. All right, which one is it? Here we go. All right. So you are going to be asked they'll say, tell me, sorry, got a couple of things going on here. There we go. And you guys are still seeing the tell me about yourself. All right. So, oh, this isn't letting me do it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm kind of, text silly over here. All right, so tell me about your question. Tell me about yourself question. This is the oldest interview question. They want to know about your background and how you got started in your career. This is not, oh, well, I grew up in Southern Indiana. I like horses. I hate peas and I can't sing karaoke, but I really do enjoy, a good sunset. That has nothing to do with the job that you are applying for. So the tell me about yourself question, they do want to know you, and some interviewers will have, you'll feel that vibe. Some really want to be really informal. Like a true job interview should be a conversation. It should be a back and forth between you and the employer, because you are also interviewing the employer as much as they're interviewing you. You want to make sure that you want to work there too. You're not just like, hey, I'll just take anything. You're working hard to get to where you want to be in life. And so you're going to be picky too. So just like they have multiple candidates that they're interviewing for one job, you should also have multiple candidates that you're interviewing to who's going to be your employer. So this should be a conversation. It should be back and forth. It should not just be somebody firing questions at you. And if that is the case, that is either an inexperienced interviewer, or, maybe they're having a bad day, or, they're just trying to get through stuff, but that's not your problem. So it should be a good back and forth. So they'll say, so tell me about yourself. So what you want to do is you really want to take your time. This is one of those that could really easily set the tone for literally the rest of the interview. Great response that resonates with the interviewer could easily tip the scales versus something if you flub it, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, have you ever been in a conversation with somebody where you're like, where are we going? Like, what is happening? This person's not making any sense. Like, what is going on? So make sure that your answer is, it's clear, it's succinct, it's to the point. See if I can move on. So you want to talk about your background. You want to talk about how you got started. What did you like about it? And where do you see yourself going? So you have to keep it relevant to the job that you are applying for. So let's say it's accounting, and you need them to understand why you picked this particular career. So you might say, I grew up in a small town. Both my parents were accountants. I was around numbers all the time. It was really kind of neat for me. And so I started taking some higher level classes in high school, and then you go on your journey. And then I ended up at Florida Southern, and I'm studying accounting. And then I really want to, continue that career. It could be, I grew up, with an Army-based family. We moved around a lot. Therefore, I got to meet lots of different people, and I found out that was really great at talking to new people. And I never felt uncomfortable in different situations. And then if that's where your field takes you. So it's the whole idea of like how you got started in what it is that you love. What are you passionate about? What are you good at? And where do you kind of see yourself going in that? So kind of the framework to stick with is how you got started, what you like about it, and where you see yourself going. This is about you. So you really shouldn't need a script. It shouldn't be like, my name is Megan and I grew up here, and because that's very uncomfortable. And like I said, it could really set the tone for the rest of the interview, which is going to be really, really awkward. So practice it several times so that you know where you're going with this, and you know what company you're going to be interviewing with. So again, practice. I recommend practicing with a friend. I recommend practicing in the mirror. I recommend videoing yourself. And so you can see yourself. It's a little awkward, but it's really helpful that you can see, are you someone who says, a lot? Do you troll your hair, fiddle with your glasses? Can you not keep eye contact? These are things that we do. We don't even realize that we're doing it until it's pointed out. I just said, I just caught myself doing that right now. It could be little habits. Like I have somebody that I work with that I'll say something, they'll go, huh? And I'm like, the hell was that? But they don't even kind of realize they did it. And then I just won't answer. Then they stop. They realize that I didn't answer. And then they'll go, okay, excuse me, what did you say? Or sometimes they heard me anyway. But until you bring people up on that awareness, they don't know they do it. So you won't know that you do that until you see yourself doing it. So definitely practice. All right, so create your answer. I'm just going to put over here. So create your answer. You want to tell the interviewer how you got started in your profession and when you first realized that you were interested in it. Again, this could be finance, this could be business, this could be sports management, it could be econ, whatever it is that got you there is when did you first realize that's what you wanted to do? Talk about what you did to nurture that desire and what fueled your passion. This, again, could be anything. My parents did it. I took a couple classes in school. My best friend got into it. I read a book. I saw a movie. I heard a speaker, whatever. It doesn't matter. It could be anything that nurtured that and fueled your passion and made you want to continue more. For me, it was psychology, like taking that random happen chance elective, and then I just went with it, and I love it, and I'm studying it all the time, and I'm always trying to keep up on the newest things. For me, that's my passion. All right, mention where you are going to school. So you'll talk about Florida Southern, maybe touching on some relevant highlights, like I joined this particular sorority or fraternity or club or organization, or I took this class, or I went on junior journey, or I had this internship, any of the things that you kind of have learned along the way. And you want to gloss over 1 or 2 key jobs or internships that you had. Now, if you don't have anything, if you've never had a job before, that's okay. We've definitely got things that we can work on. Sure, there's some type of volunteer experience or something that you did in high school or through your church or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or, something, sports, any of those things we can find where you continue to nurture this love of your career. And then you want to kind of wrap it all up. What you like about the profession, kind of where you see yourself heading. You can even tie that into the position that you are interviewing for, which is something that I highly recommend. You definitely need to know about the company and about the position so that you can tailor your answers. This is who I am. This is where I come from. This is what I bring to the table. This is why, this is kind of where I see myself going. And you have to do all that in about 60 seconds or so, or less. All right, so I've got a whole list of do's and don'ts on how to answer this question. I'm going to put that in the other PowerPoint that I will post for you. But basically, don't go off on this big, huge tangent of, well, my favorite food is pizza, unless you are applying for a pizza restaurant and you're going to be the biggest promoter of your company's product. Your answers should always be relevant to the job that you are applying for. So part of my history, I'm also a certified massage therapist. I'm also a lifeguard and a swim coach. That's not relevant to the job that I'm doing. So I don't talk about that. I don't talk about all of the little jobs that, I was a nanny and, I used to, wait tables, or, unless it's relevant to the job. Like if I want to talk about my people skills or communication or ability to multitask, yes, I could use my restaurant experience, because that's all you do in a restaurant is multitask and deal with people and conflict resolution. But it's not relevant to say, I enjoy massaging people and making that mind-body connection when I'm applying for a staff accountant position. So your answer, no matter what it is, has to be relevant to the job you're applying for. So I will post this as well under interview questions. That module says interview questions. It'll be the tell me about yourself question. And I highly recommend that you go through it, you construct your answer in the steps that I give you, and practice. All right. Let me stop that. Okay. And the last one that we're going to do is the why did you leave your last job? Now, if you have never had a job, it's pretty easy. But if you have, if you are not working right now, why did you leave? You either left because you were laid off, you were terminated, or you quit. If you are still working, they're going to ask, why do you want to leave? So the trick to this one is just be honest. regardless of what the situation is, regardless of what happened, whether you got fired, whether, it doesn't matter, just be honest. Getting terminated is not some scarlet letter that you have to carry around for the rest of your life and that nobody will ever hire you ever again. If you were at a job for 2 weeks or something like that, and it was a really bad blowout, it's not going to show like a gap in your employment history. Maybe you just don't put it on your resume. Maybe you just don't talk about it. But if you were there and for a significant amount of time and you get terminated, just be honest. If the company was they're downsizing and you got laid off, you could talk about that. Or you just quit. So here's a couple things that you can do. Say it's downsizing. You want to tailor your answer to where you're saying something along the lines of, well, they had to make some budget cuts. And I know that my supervisor fought really hard for the entire team. And it was a really tough decision. And at the end of the day, they just couldn't justify, our department anymore. And the entire department got laid off. I was the last one to go. Unfortunately, I was unable to. It was really out of my hands. If that's true, great. If you got fired and you said it was downsizing and they go and check it out, they're going to find out that you were untruthful, and that's not good. If you left on your own, one of the things I always say, and you can use this, one of the things that I say a lot is, I was looking for a better opportunity. No one can fault you for that. No one can say, oh no, you have to stay in a job that doesn't fit your needs, doesn't challenge you, doesn't anything like that. There's a lot of ways that you can say this. You can say simply, I was looking for a better opportunity. Or you could say, I feel like I maxed out on the challenges that job offered. Maybe they didn't have any advancement opportunities. You maxed out on your growth potential and there were just no advancement opportunities. Maybe your spouse or significant other gets a job and you have to relocate. Again, whatever's the truth, just say it. Just be honest. Don't ever, 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 this is my next slide here. Don't ever, 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 ever badmouth your previous employer. It could have been the worst situation possible, but do not under any circumstances, oh, that guy was a jerk and he wouldn't listen. He was a micromanager and I hated working there and I just couldn't take it anymore. All that does is tell that future employer that you're going to say the same things about them. That makes you look like you're pushing all of the responsibility on everybody else. It's not your fault. You're not going to take any responsibility. You're not accountable. Even if your boss was the biggest jerk on the planet, you don't say that. You can easily say, well, my previous supervisor and I, we had a difficult time collaborating and seeing eye to eye on things. And it was just not a very conducive work environment. And I felt like it was time to move on. You could say something like that. If you got fired, to say, just own it. Well, I missed a couple deadlines and it cost the company some money and I was terminated. But since then, then you got to fix, follow that up with, since then, I have been turning in everything, well in advance of deadlines, and I have not made that same mistake again. And I have trained myself to, however you handled it, but just be honest. Let's see, if you're still working and they said, well, why do you want to leave? Again, this is a perfect opportunity to just say, I'm just actually looking for a better opportunity. I am looking, and then this is where you could really wow them because you've done your research on the company. And you could say, I'm really looking for a better opportunity. For example, working, with you would really resonates with my values as I align with your mission and vision and whatever that would be. I love how this company contributes so much to the community and I live here, work here, play here. I'm raising my family here. So I really want to be part of an organization that is as invested in my community as I am. I use that all the time. You're welcome to use it. As invested as I am, that I want to be part of that so that I can continue to emulate your mission and vision. But just never badmouth your previous work, employer, coworkers, anything. You could eat, even if it's like, well, the commute, it got so bad. The commute I was on the road for 3 hours a day. That's understandable. No one's going to fault you for leaving a job as long as you leave it appropriately, like whether that's a 2-week notice or a 4-week notice, whatever the company's policy is. Don't have false loyalty. When you have a job, you need to be there 100% and give it your all. But when that job is no longer meeting your needs, then leave it appropriately. You're more than welcome to always look for different opportunities. If you're job hopping a lot, you can only stay at job, every couple months here and there, that could be a problem. Employers are going to think that you're a flight risk. So you got to kind of balance between like what is best for me and what is my personal brand that I am establishing for myself. All right, so create your answer. You want to identify one single reason you left and focus your answer on that. Don't go into a whole string of reasons, because then they're going to start to question you like, what? What's going on here? Don't spend a whole lot of time on, especially if you got fired. Just the facts and move on. Make sure the reason you left would not be a concern for their prospective employer. So for example, you were stealing, or you were, stalking or vandalizing the place. That's a problem. That's a problem. We definitely don't want to highlight that in this interview. So make sure it's nothing that is going to be a concern for their prospective employer. If you left to pursue greater challenges, just make sure that your need for those greater challenges are being met with this new potential future employer, because you don't want to go into say like, well, I wanted more advancement opportunities, and they're like, well, there are none here. We're a small company. And you're like, oh, it's no problem. You just told me that you left your other job because there was no advancement. So that is a problem. So make sure that whatever your reason for leaving, that's not even a word. Your reasoning for leaving doesn't impact your consideration for the next job, or that your new job could potentially offer those needs for you. Okay, we talked about that. If you've been fired, even if it wasn't your fault, just own it. And just be like, it just was a conflict of interest or a difference of opinion. And just be done with it. If they want to know more, they'll ask some follow-up questions. But if you keep talking, you tend to talk yourself like into a hole. And especially you'll do that if you get nervous and you're trying to like backpedal and make sure it doesn't look bad. But just say what happened, be clear, be confident. That's 100% is the best thing you could ever do. Eye contact. Well, I was terminated. My immediate supervisor and I, whatever the issue was, as long as you're not bad mouthing them, and then move on. They will have a lot of respect for that. Okay. All right. If you were laid off, it's likely due to economic reasons, corporate cutbacks. Again, try to say how like they try to fight for your job. You were like the last to be, let go and whatnot. But you're a solid performer, and it really was just a numbers game. And unfortunately, maybe you were low man on totem pole, or maybe your specific department, couldn't, for whatever reason. But just make sure you're not painting yourself in a negative light. And then wrap it up by just telling a simple story. One single reason, one little story. Excuse me. All right. Questions, comments, concerns about that? All right. Let me do a stop share. I don't see any hands and nothing in the chat box. All right. Okay, so that is it for our first lesson. We went over the employability, the top 10 employability skills. You rated yourself 1 to 10 on your confidence levels. The employability assessment, look at those different categories and see where you are strong and confident, where you need to develop, or if you're like, this really just doesn't apply to me, that is perfectly fine too. 2 of the 10 interview questions that you're going to be asked by employers. These, again, are pretty standard ones that employers will all ask. There's like a book and everybody looks through them. Now, different employers are going to have specific questions that they like that helps them understand. There are going to be questions that you're going to be asked that are just like off the wall. Like I had somebody say, if you were a Disney park, which one would you be and why? That is so not relevant to the job. So depending on your comfort level, you could say stuff like, well, I'm a person and not a park, so I really can't answer that. If you're really confident and comfortable, and that's not relevant to the job I'm applying for. So I really don't have an answer for that. You know, sometimes it might just be trying to make you uncomfortable. Maybe they're trying to see how you handle being uncomfortable, maybe see how you think on the spot. I had a student tell me that he had an employer ask him, what did I have for lunch today? And the student was like, he said it took him a second. And he's like, how would I possibly know that? And the interviewer was looking for him to say that. And I don't agree with this particular tactic. I feel like he was being set up, but he was looking for him to say, I have no idea. Because then it was showing him that, no, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. I understand where he's going with that, but you don't want to be ever felt like you're set up. A good interview will just be a nice flow back and forth. You should be asking questions as they're asking you questions. And one of those questions that they will ask you is, do you have any questions for us or for me? And we'll go over that one as well. But throughout the entire interview, you should be, questions should be exchanged back and forth. All right, so let's go over the job description activity that you guys are going to be doing for next class. If I find my Zoom again. All right, so what you're going to do for this activity is you are looking for a job in your area of interest. It doesn't have to be anything that you're qualified for right now, but think about one that you will be when you finish school. Take the time to try to find something that is relevant to you and to what you are looking to do, because the activities that we do with this job description, we're going to use it throughout the entire course. We're going to practice writing our resume with it and our cover letter, and some of our interview questions we're going to practice using this job description. So it can change throughout the course too. It doesn't have to be anything that you stick with. And if you find something like, oh, this is really something I'm more interested in, that is absolutely fine too. But what I do is I say, just pick one in your area of interest, something that you would like to do, even if you are not qualified for it right this second. You will be eventually when you finish school. And so we're going to be referencing back to this. So what I did is I pulled up one, and I'm going to use this as mine, and just to show you. Okay, so I just did a copy and paste. I did this off of LinkedIn. So I just found a job. The company's Game Time. The position is learning and development lead. And then I just copied and pasted this. So this is going to be my job description that I am going to use for our activities. So what you need to do is the same thing. I don't care where your source is. It could be LinkedIn, Handshake, Indeed. It could be a specific company that you're interested in, but take the time to look out there and find a job that you would like to apply for, either, in the near future or when you're finished with school, depending on where you are in your journey. So that is one of your assignments due for next week. The next thing you're going to do is the discussion 1 post, which is a little bit about getting to know you. There are 3 questions, I believe, 3 or 4 questions in there that I ask you to answer. And then please comment on one of your peers so that we can have a dialogue going on between you guys throughout the course. All right, then you have, if you do not have a Handshake account, let's see if I can pull mine up. If you do not have a Handshake account, you have to create one. If you do already have it, fantastic. You just need to make sure it is up to date. So you have to create, for those of you that don't know, there's Handshake. Mine is going to look a little bit different than yours, but this is where you're going to go in and you are going to request appointments with me. The best way that you can do that is if you go to appointments, new appointment. I would say go career advising, and then go to final steps, business majors, and then you'll see all of my availability. If it's internships or pre-health or STEM, none of that will pop up. You have to specifically go for final steps for business majors, not internships, or you won't see my availability. So you can create appointments that way. Your profile needs to have a professional picture, and it does need to be filled out. Again, mine is gonna look different than yours, but you can also look for jobs and internships and all sorts of stuff is all posted in here. If we are doing different fairs, career fairs, or mock interviews or networking, we're gonna post all of that in here. So you have to have a Handshake account. And for this assignment, you just need to screenshot it and submit that. But you also have to have a LinkedIn account. So in your LinkedIn, if I could spell it. Okay. Oh, you can't. Okay, so your LinkedIn account again has to have a professional picture, has to be filled out. You can see my network here. You can see my about me. I've got some skills and I've got my people over here that I am connected to. As part of this assignment, you have to send a request and or show your previous connection to Dean Weber as well as to me. So you need to request to connect with me and with Dean Weber. If you already have a connection with him, just again, screenshot it in your contacts. So that is the Handshake and LinkedIn account, the job description, the discussion one, and then the other one, the other assignment that you have is half of your story. In your story, I'm going to pull it up on assignments, and then I will share my screen. Half of your story, yeah. Okay, so there's going to be 10 skills total that you're going to do. We're going to do 5 for the first half and 5 for the second half. So you're going to examine networking and create positive first impressions. By doing that, you're going to identify skills and link them with tasks that help you create a story-worthy experience to help you tell your story. So here's a sample document. And as I pull this up, I don't know if you guys can still see it or not, or if you're following along, but I don't know if it changed what you're able to see. But here is what you want to do. You're going to select a skill. Might as well just use the skills from the employability assessment. Those are the reasons why we did that. So you're going to select a skill and you're going to put it over here in the skill box. And then the task that you had to do to demonstrate that skill. And then you're going to create a concise, short 2 to 3 sentence story that highlights your actual role, specifically your role in this particular story. So the example, which does not count as one of your 10. So you have to come up with 5 of your own for this and then 5 for the second half. So this example is problem solving. The task was a volunteer shift leader in a local garden. So as a shift leader at Southern Farms, I oversaw student volunteers on a weekly basis. One day we had 20 volunteers show up. Normally we only have 5. I was by myself to manage them, but I looked over the plan, took a breath, and decided to talk to the volunteers in smaller groups so they had the opportunity to ask questions about their tasks. It was stressful at first, but resulted in a successful day. We weeded all the beds, mulched the beds, and planted a lot of garlic. So think about when you demonstrated problem solving or leadership or communication or teamwork or any of the skills that you are looking at. When you are in a job interview or when you are writing your cover letter, you are going to be dependent on these stories. So instead of sitting there going, oh God, let me think. You already have these stored away. That's why we're doing this, so that you already have it laid out. No, it's not going to be a script that you're going to read, and it's not going to be applicable to every interview that you go on, but you will now have a nice, rich bank of stories to draw on where you're not just saying, yeah, I have good communication skills. Well, how do I know that? Well, when I was at this role at this company, this happened, and that's how I demonstrated it. It really paints a really great picture for the employer to see you doing the skill that you say you have. So again, you have to come up with 5 different skills. Please don't give me 5 stories of problem solving. That is not acceptable. That will not get you the points for the assignment. 5 different skills. The tasks could be somewhat similar, but the stories need to be different. How did you demonstrate these skills? So again, 5 for this assignment, and then 5 for the second part a little bit later down the line. So those, again, I'll post in the announcements as well, what all is due, but I think those are the only ones, as Alexander pointed out, those are the only ones that are actually open anyway, but I can go through and open the rest for those that want to like work ahead. So that is all I have for you guys. If you have any questions or comments or concerns or need any type of further clarification, please email me, please call me, please set up an appointment on Handshake. Let me know how I can be here for you. If not, please go. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to reading some of your submissions so I can get to know you guys better. I'm going to sign off.